Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast. Powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. With Philip Nothard and Curtis Hutchinson, bringing you all the chatter that matters.
Well, yeah, I'm back.
Welcome back. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I know you had a very good week, didn't you? I think the weather was a little just good on your side, I think.
Yeah. A week in Cornwall with the sun shining. Couldn't really ask for more. So I had a great week off and enjoyed listening to the show from afar. And many thanks to Carl Davis, industry guru and friend of the pod, who stepped in for me last week. It sounds like you two had a really good chat.
Yeah, he didn't keep me tamed like you do, Curtis. I had free flow to talk as long as I wanted, which it was quite a long one. To be fair, we did have a lot of big hit headlines to cover that week, particularly with what was going on in the Financial Times. But big shout out to Carl. I know he really enjoyed it, and I had a good chat with him before and after the podcast, and he did put us both to shame a little bit with his tech equipment, didn't he?
Yes, because he posted a photograph of himself recording the podcast, posted it on LinkedIn, and he was surrounded by an array of kit, which was really impressive. So I did let him know that I had studio envy, because my studio, in inverted commas, looks nothing like that.
No, mine neither, in fairness, but I was very surprised. If I'd known, I'd have asked him. If I'd known beforehand, I'd have asked him to run through what tech he's got involved with this recording. But he didn't have any shopping, grocery deliveries or anything like that, I suppose, or dogs barking and
that's it.
Wally's running across the floor or anything, Curtis. Though, to be fair.
You get a pro on the podcast, and that's what you get.
No, but a huge thank you for that, and I know it's the second time that he's been on the podcast, so I know he does really enjoy it. So thanks again, big shout out, Carl, for stepping in and for doing that. I know it was a fantastic, great. I think about an hour in the end, nearly an hour. We were chatting, so no, it was a good chat.
Yeah, no, definitely. And next week, do look out for our monthly catch-up with Cap HPI's Darren Martin. So Darren will be looking at June's trade values and hopefully a sort of wider look at H1 overall.
Yeah, definitely. And I know I gave a few shout-outs last week, and we lost an industry legend, but it was the same again this week, isn't it? But you actually knew Nick Riley, didn't you?
Yeah, very sad news. Nick Riley, the former managing director and chairman of Vauxhall, and in fact, he was GM's European boss for Vauxhall and Opel as well. Yeah, I got to know Nick sort of reasonably well on various press trips over the years, and he really was a fascinating character and a great leader and very, very popular within Vauxhall. And so sadly he died last week, aged just 74, and it was after a long illness. But there's been some really, really good obituaries, and I'll put a link in the newsletter to one that Ray Massey wrote for the Daily Mail, because Ray knew him very, very well, and it's a fascinating insight. But Nick, very much a proud Welshman. He graduated from Cambridge, and interestingly, he became a stockbroker, but he realised fairly soon that it wasn't for him. So he went off to a Welsh mountain to consider what as you do, to consider what he was going to do, and actually spent a couple of months on this in a cabin on a Welsh mountain. And he had a eureka moment when he thought, no, my future is in manufacturing. So came down from the mountain, joined GM back in 1975, and he really did rise up through the management ranks within the UK and overseas, and he became chairman and MD of Vauxhall in 1996, which is certainly when I first became aware of him and first got to know him. And the term legend is used a lot, but he really was a legendary figure in the industry, and probably best known and best respected for giving up his salary for a year at a time when it looked as though GM were going to pull the plug on Ellesmere Port, and he really did demonstrate his commitment to UK manufacturing. And as I say, he forewent his salary and kept manufacturing. That was at the time when every few years there was a battle for production. Who was going to build the Astra? Was it going to be the UK or Germany? So, and then after that, he masterminded the takeover of Daewoo, which was absorbed into GM. So, an amazing career, an amazing character.
Yeah, and as you say, sad loss, and thoughts go out to the family, and I say a legend of a name and a legend of the industry. And talking about names and legends of the industry, Curtis, we have got the return of Mr. Whitten.
I see what you did there.
Yes. There is a bit of a segue link to this, but he's been on his travels over the weekend, so he's had a bit of a break, of which he will reference, I suspect, in the update. But please stay tuned for the men-able moment of this week from industry guru, wellbeing guru, our friend of the podcast, Stephen Whitten. So do stay tuned for that halfway through today's podcast.
You're listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, powered by Motors.
So headlines this week come from the Financial Times, Car Dealer, AM and Autocar, starting with troubled US EV carmaker Fisker files for bankruptcy. Most buyers are considering dealer finance but want more transparency. Volvo announces the return of the estate. Big story there. And we'll finish with a roundup of some big name people news, including the SMMT's Mike Hawes, retailing legend Tony Bramall, and OEM boss Jon Goodman.
You're listening to all the chatter that matters on the Motor Trade Radio podcast. If you're a supplier and would like us to profile your business and reach our audience of dealer bosses, managers and decision makers on one of our dedicated supplier specials episodes, get in touch with Curtis and Philip at motortraderadio@yahoo.com.
So as Curtis said there, we're first heading over to the Financial Times, and this is with the headline, Electric Carmaker Fisker files for bankruptcy. And this is the US startup becomes the latest to succumb to difficulties hitting the sector, and saying that it's filed for bankruptcy after a funding deal with a large car maker fell through, which I think we referred to or we spoke about at the time, which was Nissan. And the latest EV producers has come to the struggles facing the sector. Now, obviously, we've been watching and talking about Fisker. I mean, the shares have been ups and downs, should we say. And I don't know if this is their third or fourth time now, but I think this, from memory, and please do correct me, anybody that's listening to today's podcast, I think this is the first time they've actually got a car to market to take orders. Which, I think that's the point with this. I mean, the feedback and the reviewers that got to drive the new Fisker Ocean, I mean, very positive. It was very positive feedback on the car itself with all the test drive days.
Yeah, the reviews were very good, and Fisker is actually on sale in the UK. I know there's an outlet in, I think, Westfield.
Yes.
I don't know if there's any other outlets. It was still early days for Fisker, but yeah, you're right. So this is the company launched by entrepreneur Henrik Fisker, and his first company, as you intimated, Fisker Automotive. which was due to make the world's first luxury plug-in hybrid, actually filed for Chapter 11 protection back in 2013. So this is kind of familiar territory for him. Now, with Fisker, they had the Ocean SUV, which was launched a year or so ago, but it failed to achieve its sales targets across the US and indeed Europe. So they produced just over 10,000 models, 10,000 Ocean models in 2023, but they only delivered just under 5,000 to customers. And its cars are also under investigation by the US auto safety regulator after complaints about their braking system. So that certainly didn't help on the sales front.
No, and as you say, I mean, there's been a few chapters of trying to raise capital, and obviously in terms of that debt. And, I think one of the issues and some of the commentators on what has happened is the feeling that maybe he should have got to market quicker with a dealer network, partnered with dealers just to pass on some of that financing, that funding of the vehicles, and obviously to help with that order bank. But I think there's a second question of this is obviously what's been happening generally in the EV market against the new Chinese manufacturers, the volume of product that's entering the sector, the low entry points of those vehicles. Consumers have now got a big choice of battery electric vehicles at all levels of luxury through to mainstream now, and that will add further pressure onto this brand.
Yeah, definitely. And it was pretty ambitious what Fisker envisaged doing, because unusually for a manufacturer, they outsourced the production, the actual assembly work to parts supplier Magna, who assembled the vehicles rather than building a factory themselves. And they did actually plan to make up to 50,000 units a year by 2023, but they did fall well and truly short of that mark. So I guess that's one name we can cross off from the new entrants list, Phil.
It is, yeah, unfortunately, and I don't know. It's probably not the last time we're going to see Henrik Fisker, is it? I think he ain't going to walk away, is he? These type of gentlemen don't walk away from the market. I think he'll come back with something else. But I think he just couldn't get that funding, didn't get that partnership with an OEM just to make that manufacturing and cost base a little bit easier for them. So unfortunately, I think there's a few disappointed people that probably had these vehicles on order, and we're looking at testing the super button that you had. I think was it that the power button that you had 500 goes at it through its life cycle of the vehicle or something like this. It's it's quite unique in many ways. But
so you have to ration yourself.
That was a view, yeah. You had this boost button, but you had a limit of 500 uses on it.
So it sort of delivers warp speed at the press of a button, but only 500 times.
There's only 500 times you get through the life of the vehicle. But no, like I say, it's a shame. But as I say, I doubt that will be the last time we hear of Henrik Fisker. I think he'll be back at some point in the future doing something else around the automotive sector, I suspect.
Next headline comes from AM Online, and it is greater transparency needed to boost confidence in dealer finance, says Motors Research. So this is the Consumer Insight Panel research that Motors did recently, and I was involved in this press release, and I did see the data, and it really is a fascinating insight, because there's obviously a lot going on at the moment in regards to dealer finance. So what the research did was it polled the views of just over 2,000 in-market buyers and asked them about dealer finance. And it found that dealer finance is a viable option, with 63% of those who previously bought their cars outright open to such financing for their next purchase. But more importantly, 3/4 of car buyers are considering finance options offered by dealers, despite only half of them actually feeling comfortable with the process.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I say, it can come at a more interesting time with the current DCA and the FCA thing taking place at the minute. But as you say there, I mean, it's as always with these, it's a fascinating study into, what their consumer expectations. You say, the 46% and almost half, thinking about payment methods before initializing their search, 32%. Saying that during the search phase, and only 11% during both the shortlisting and the final decision making, which kind of highlights, that how important that finance functionality is in any platform when consumers are searching for their vehicle. The research does go on to say that despite the high level of interest, only 51% of those considering dealer finance report feeling comfortable with the process. But yeah, it's there's some interesting points around the hidden fees and the high interest rates as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And there's a good comment from Lucy Tugby, the marketing director of Motors, who says, our research shows that dealers are the preferred choice for financing among car buyers. However, the discomfort many buyers feel needs to be addressed by retailers. The convenience of arranging finance at the point of sale is a major advantage, but increasing transparency could significantly improve customer confidence and conversion rates. So that really is the key, isn't it? It's building that transparency, that confidence, because if you can deliver finance at the point of sale with the car that's being sold, it does make a lot of sense to just bundle it all together. And that is after all what buyers are after. They want that convenience, so make it as easy as possible for them.
Yeah,
I think.
I think it certainly is, and I mean the numbers speak for themselves. The main concerns being those hidden fees. 43% cited that the hidden fees was one of their concerns, and high interest rates was another concern again at 43%, and again followed by pressures to finalise the deals at a quarter of those surveyed felt that that pressure to finalise the deal was too much. So again, like you say, clearly the research is that finance needs to be part of that process. It needs to be clear. It needs to be transparent, and I think that's where the trust needs to come in. But some fantastic research there from the Motors panel.
We're back with more headlines after this Menable moment from our mental wealth guru, Stephen Whitten.
You're listening to all the chatter that matters on Motor Trade Radio, powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. This is your weekly one-stop shop for all the biggest car retailing headlines from across the media, available on demand, wherever you are, and on your podcast feed. Next up is our latest Menable moment, looking at mental wealth and well-being awareness and best practice in the automotive sector. With me, Stephen Whitten. Yeah, hi everyone, it's Menable Moments time again. Hope you're well. Looks like the sun's coming out. Fingers crossed. Let's not speak too soon though, eh? But it's all looking good. I'm coming to you this week from the quiet comfort of my sofa. And the reason for that is that I've been on my travels. And I had a cheeky little break in Krakow. Is that how you say it? Or Krakow? I don't know, Krakow sounds so much better. But anyway, yes, at the very last minute, me and my best mate, who was working out there, just decided that I'd go along with him. So I booked a flight and off I went. And that's why I've been a bit quiet this week on the old LinkedIn and stuff. But it does link to something that happened back end of last week, really. And that is that I had some hypnotherapy. I don't know if you've ever done that or if you've ever had any kind of CBT, Not that they're that close really, but or any kind of therapy of any sort. But it does have a great habit of helping you really put things into perspective. Now, I'm going to admit that this hypnotherapy, it did make me cry, profusely, actually, because one of the things that it does is it creates a sort of a time where you go back into your memories, really. So a sort of timeline where you look back at things that have happened to you over your life. And the subconscious has got a great way of, everything that we've ever done or seen or whatever is stored, obviously. And through hypnotherapy, we can access it and pull those memories back up, sort of analyse them a little bit and find out, what they meant or what they could do for you or how you thought about them, what it's done for you since. And in my case, it brought up two really, really strong, vivid memories that did make me have an emotional moment. But it also brought up two or three really good positive ones that really helped to put all of it into perspective and really make me think that even more, for me, one of my core values is freedom. It's the freedom to do what I want when I want. And I know I'm in a very privileged position to say that. And so along with that is literally that sort of, on a Thursday, I am going to book a ticket and I'm going to leave the country on a Sunday and go off for a couple of days, purely because I have the capacity and the privilege of being able to do that. So have a think about what your real key values are and what do you think, what words would come up for you? Maybe it's freedom, maybe it's honesty or integrity or, could be anything. Give us a shout back if you have any thoughts or ideas on that. On a slightly more sombre note, it was really kind of brought home to me as well at the weekend that I heard a very sad story. Many of you will know that I'm a trustee of a cancer support charity in Milton Keynes, near where I live. And one of our lovely volunteers who themselves had been terminally ill with cancer had been admitted into the local hospice. He has since passed away. That happened during the course of the early part of this week. But literally on the day before he passed away, his wife, who was seemingly well and healthy, also just suddenly passed away. And we are, within the charity, of course, all shocked and really just don't know what to say or how to deal with it, if I'm honest, because it really has brought home, again, the fragility of life and just how important it is to live for today. So, sorry that's a little bit sombre, but we do also think there's a bit of a beautiful side to it because the couple were very, very close and only had each other. They didn't really have any close family nearby. And so there's something kind of beautiful in that, I guess, that they've now, passed on together because one probably couldn't have lived much of a happy life without the other. So, again, another little reminder to properly step back, live for today, and do what's right for you. And as I said, in my case, it's to have freedom and flexibility and do what I want to do when I want to do it. I did chuckle because earlier in the week, Phil, bless you, I know you always send me a little reminder to say it's Men Able Moments time again. And you'd obviously seen my Krakow pictures on Facebook and referred to me as the Men Able version of Judith Chalmers. So thank you for that. That did make me laugh. For the younger people in the audience, Judith Chalmers was a travel journalist who, I don't know, what was 70s, 80s, perhaps, maybe even longer than that. But anyway, she ran this program called Wish You Were Here. And that was all about going off on Yarly Bobs and having a great time, which we all love to try and get away and do, don't we? So anyway, so a few things in there, really, which is, one, espousing the virtues of any kind of therapy, hypnotherapy in particular. Be prepared for what it will do, because it will dig up some emotions, but it's good. And emotion and crying is a great way of cleansing all of that stuff. And so wholeheartedly recommend that. Bit of a somber story there in the middle, but I'm sure you understand why I was sharing that with you, because, again, another little reminder of the fragility of life and just how important it is to love the people around you and take time for you as well. And lastly, let's hope the sun keeps shining and you can book that lovely holiday that you want. And like me, you can grab your Judith Chalmers book or whatever, and off you go with your hat and your sunglasses and go and enjoy yourself. And I will see you again soon. As always, if you want any help or support with anything within any of your team, then give us a shout. You know to get hold of me on LinkedIn or stephen.witten@menable.org. All right, you take it easy, and Judith signing out. See you soon.
You think it was a bit showing our age there, Curtis, or showing my age?
Yeah. Well, you know what? During the week, because the three of us are on a WhatsApp messaging group, and I did notice you nudging Steve and saying it's Menable this week, and you signed off by calling him Judith. I thought, Judith, but what's so funny about it? I had no idea what the context was, but you two had been exchanging, presumably on Facebook, exchanging messages. And
yeah. So yeah. So he'd obviously decided to, as he said in the chat there, to have a weekend away, a bit of time away, which we all need every now and again, don't we, Curtis? So I think, as always, you know where to find Stephen if you do need him. Again, through his website, which is menable.org, or through any of the social channels, but primarily on LinkedIn. You can get hold of Stephen Witten if you do need any support or advice or have a chat with him in general. So back to the headlines, and another good one. So try not to refer it as a U-turn, should we, with this one, but heading over to Autocar, and this is that Volvo are looking to reinstate the V60 and V90 for the UK market in a shock estate comeback, saying that the much missed medium and large estate cars are on their way back to the UK showrooms with hybrid power. Now, these are a popular model range within Volvo, and I think there was a bit of a shock at the time when Volvo announced that they were removing them from the lineup. But they have said that they are coming back, and as I said there, with hybrid models. With I think the V60 is going to be offered with a choice of 2-litre mild hybrid petrol engines producing 197 brake horsepower with a capacity of 0 to 62 in 7.6 seconds, and a pair of petrol plug-in hybrid powertrains with 350 brake horsepower and 455 brake horsepower, and subsequently similar for the V90 there. So really coming back slightly different than what you maybe expect at the minute.
Yeah, and Phil, I'd challenge you to do a U-turn in a Volvo estate.
Especially the V90, yes. That is one big boss, yes.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, when it was announced, I guess it was last year, maybe the year before, that Volvo was pulling the plug on estates, then you could just imagine antiques dealers across the country weeping.
What are we going to do?
Openly weeping. So this is really good news, and unexpected as well, because as you say, the balance has really shifted towards SUVs. So it looked as though that market for new estate, certainly new Volvo estates, had dried up because it had been superseded by the SUVs that they were delivering. But reading this story in Autocar, they've done a really good story on this, and they got the exclusive. And there is a sort of underlying suggestion within the piece, certainly within the comments from Volvo, that it's a toe in the water, that they will see how these two cars fare over the next couple of years. They're not committing to any long-term plans to sort of re-establish them, but certainly in the short to middle distance, that they will be available. And I was amused by John O'Hanlon from Wayland's Automotive, who was on LinkedIn, and he ran a photograph of the V90, and he said, "Don't want to go full M&N, but guess who's back? Really great news for Volvo with the reintroduction of the V60 and V90 to the UK market." Now, John, obviously a friend of the pod, but because he is running a group of Volvo dealerships, and he will know exactly what sort of demand there is for estate vehicles, because I'm sure customers will be coming in trying to order their next estate vehicles unaware that the plug had been pulled. So they are going to be delighted.
I think the timing's right. I think, generally, I mean, they've always been a popular model lineup within the Volvo brand anyway. I mean, they were always a good seller. Obviously, then everything went towards the SUV marketplace. And you think about in terms of the powertrain as well, with this challenge transition to EV that we've got at the minute, there's a lot more noise talking about new energy vehicles, NEVs now, rather than BEVs, because it now incorporates a lot more the hybrid marketplace. And them now looking at it thinking, do you know what, there's a demand for this stepping stone towards full battery electric. There's a demand for this estate product. Then you know what, it could be a very, very good strategic move by Volvo to reintroduce both the estate and doing it in the plug-in hybrid proposition for them as well, rather than a full EV. So I mean, great move there. I like spinning the old 455 brake horsepower one there. That's a bit of a beast.
Yes.
To house. It reminds me of the T6 and those kind of things, the Polestars and stuff. But it'd be good. But great news for Volvo and great news for the Volvo network.
There's some high-profile industry leaders in the news, and starting with AM Online has reported that SMMT chief Mike Hawes recognised for service to industry. So this is the news that Mike Hawes has been honoured with an OBE for his contributions to the automotive industry in the King's Birthday Honours List. Now, Mike is very much a friend of the pod. So we had him on as a guest last year or the year before, and I mean he's been chief exec of the SMMT for a number of years now, and has really sort of helped just raise the profile whenever there's an automotive industry story breaking in the news, then Mike Hawes is there giving the view of the manufacturers. So he has been possibly more higher profile than some of his predecessors in the job, and this is recognition for his work.
Yeah, and he does comment in a few times in the story, that he does, saying that receiving such an award for the services to the industry he loves, and having spent so much of his life championing is a huge honour. And he does go on to say that this recognition reinforces the importance of the industry and the SMMT itself, and that he wants to thank everybody with whom he has worked for their unfailing commitment and support. So congratulations, Mike, and well done with the OBE there, and hopefully we will get you back on the podcast at some point to update us on the broader activity that you're involved with at the SMMT and your views on the outlook for the automotive sector.
And next story comes from Car Dealer. The headline is former Lookers director Tony Bramall invests in car subscription firm. Now, Tony Bramall is, we do talk about legends in the industry, and he is a bona fide legend, isn't he? Because I think most listeners tuning in today will be aware of CD Bramall, the business that he ran back in the I don't know if it goes back as far as the 80s, but certainly the 90s and
Possibly, yes. I was.
the early,
Yeah. I remember the old CD Bramall when I was back selling cars. But yes,
yeah. But Tony Bramall, he's 88, and he's making a bit of a comeback as he's investing in Drive Fuse, which is a online subscription service, which also involved in the business is Peter Jones, his partner at CD Bramall, and they were worked closely together when Peter Jones was at Lookers as well. So interesting move, this, isn't it? Because at 88, you'd think you'd be sort of putting your feet up and enjoying the industry from afar, not being an active part of it.
Yeah, I don't think I've had the pleasure knowingly having a meeting Tony, but I know of him very, very well, and I think generally, it doesn't pose me the type of gentleman that would walk away. Obviously, up until recently, very active in the Lookers business as a non-exec, involved with that, which the story does reference in here, and as well as Peter Jones was also involved with Lookers as well. If you remember, he was the former Lookers CEO. It's one of them that gentlemen like this do not walk away from the industry whilst they can still be involved with it. So yeah, I think two legendary names, two big hitters in the industry there with Tony Bramall and Peter Jones, which many listeners will know them names if they don't know them at all.
Yeah, and within the story, Tony Bramall says most people in their 60s and 70s still have a lot of expertise to give. People my age like to pick up a car, drive it, and own it. But there's a trend towards using a car rather than owning it, especially among younger people. So coming from an octogenarian, even, I mean, that's showing quite a bit of foresight, isn't it? I mean, he really is down with the kids there.
Yeah, he's very connected with the sector, very, very much so. So congratulations with that, and I'm sure we'll see more of this as he gets more involved with it.
And the final story, also from Car Dealer, is Jonathan Goodman steps down at Polestar as Matt Galvin takes over. But where does it leave Neo? So Jonathan Goodman, he's UK boss of Polestar, and again, one of those industry figures who's been around for a long, long time. Listeners will know him certainly from his days at Peugeot, PSA, and more latterly Stellantis. And for the past 7 years, he's been heading up Polestar. So, a very high profile figure within the industry. But yes, he's stepping down, and taking over from him is former NIO boss. That's NIO, the Chinese car maker, Matt Galvin.
Yeah, and this begs the question, doesn't it? As one, obviously, with that move into Polestar, which replacing Jonathan Goodman is a good move, because I'm sure, knowing Jonathan's background there, he's left Polestar in a very good place for Matt to take over. But the big question that has certainly hit the headlines across the trade media is, what does that now mean for NIO? Because there's been many rumours and speculation about what NIO are doing in terms of UK and Europe. Does this mean that that's now sort of on a back burner? I think the big question has been on the back of this is, what does that mean now for NIO? Are you still looking at UK and European expansion?
Yeah, and there was certainly some speculation on LinkedIn this week about NIO's future plans for the UK. But we did actually find a report in Autocar where the headline is NIO still on track for UK launch after departure of Boss. So this is very much a sort of follow-up story to the one we've just been talking about. So a Chinese firm says it's still committed to Europe after exit of UK and German bosses, because also at the same time the German boss of NIO, Marius Haller, has also joined Polestar. So this really is throwing a spanner in the works for NIO, but it is saying, or it's certainly telling Autocar, that it is committed to Europe, it is committed to the UK.
Yeah, I think some of that was announced over in Beijing at the car show as well. So there's still plans there. So certainly one to watch as to what NIO are doing. I think they've got their things happening across some of that European market. I don't think we've quite seen them in the UK yet. So yeah, I think interesting moves. I think you do wonder what these gentlemen know about what NIO are doing. And maybe they have a little bit more foresight as to what NIO's future looks like in UK and Europe. But we'll see. But so big headlines this week with that. Lots going on. Big shout out to those names at the end there in terms of some of the people movers. Again, shame around Fisker. Good job I didn't invest in that one, Curtis. Kept away from you could see them failing fairly early on. Again, just say, have a look at the always good insight coming out from Motors. So again, particularly to those dealers listening to this morning's podcast, have a look at that story that Curtis was referring to there in AM Online from the Motors panel from their consumer insight, because clearly there is some content in there useful for how you present finance for consumers, because inevitably they are looking at doing it. They just need that confidence and transparency to do it. But do take a look at that one.
But you know what, Phil? That is all for now. So many thanks for joining us on the Motor Trade Radio podcast. Do catch our June Trade Values interview this week with Cap HPI's Darren Martin. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Thank you for listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. We'll be sharing all the URLs from this week's headlines on Monday morning. To make sure you receive them, just subscribe to the free newsletter on our LinkedIn page. Just search Motor Trade Radio Podcast.